Crystal Tower information, Whiskey 2153 Zulu, wind 060 at 5.
076 Mike Juliet, departure radar contact.
Hazardous weather information from Minnesota available on flight service frequency.
You've dialed in the Flying Midwest podcast, connecting aviators from across America's heartland, sharing news, information, and events from around the region.
Calling Nancy 53 on over tower, roger, turn left heading 070, runway 9er, clear for takeoff.
Sit back, relax, and join our crew for some hangar talk as we discuss a wide variety of regional aviation topics.
Archer 71143, flying 5, runway 28 left, quick takeoff, left hand southbound first.
And now, from our home at the Anoka County Blaine Airport, our checklist is complete, and we're ready for departure for another episode of the Flying Midwest podcast.
Contact departure on your flight.
Welcome, everybody, to the Flying Midwest podcast, where 2 out of the 3 hosts know what's going on, and the third is doing this intro. How's it going, guys?
And the third is you.
The third is
great.
Yeah, Jim and Maddie know what's going on. I think all 3 of us are tired, and you 2 were involved with this interview. So in about 5 to 10 minutes, I'm going to ask you what we have coming up in this episode. But in the meantime, how you guys been?
Well, I actually have something that I did, which is exciting because nothing ever happens to me.
What'd you do?
I completed my ATP CTP this last week.
That is friggin' awesome. Congratulations, Manny.
It's one small step in the journey to become a professional pilot, but it's done. It was a grueling week. It was 40 hours. That sounds not like a big deal, but it's 9 hours of classroom a day and then sims. And it was a lot of information. They go through a lot of stuff. And I got to fly the Citation 10 over on the east side of Wichita, so I didn't actually have to go anywhere except for to work, basically. It's right across the street from my work. So that was fun. It was just me and another instructor, so it was just, we're all employees just, hanging out and sharing experiences. It was a really good time.
Very cool. That is awesome for you. Congratulations.
Thank you. What's been going on with you, Jim?
Super busy between CFI work and work and podcasting. It's a lot sometimes, but here we are. I think I said in prior episodes that I'm starting to put my foot on the gas a little bit more with the CFI stuff. So I've actually been fortunate enough to adjust my work schedule a little bit. So I'm working 10-hour days at work, and when I'm not doing that, I'm doing flight lessons sometimes in the evening or writing lesson plans or doing edits. So it's been kind of grueling, but I want to hurry up and get the CFI stuff done. It's not going to happen before Oshkosh like I kind of hoped originally, but I'm hoping for sometime in September, maybe early October to get this knocked out. So lesson plans are coming along nicely, though. I'm feeling more confident in presenting those, and the plane's back up, so I've been having some time in the plane too. So.
Woohoo!
But the other really big thing, in addition to all that stuff, is all the prep I'm starting to put in for Oshkosh, as far as researching possible guests and looking for stuff to do, as far as certain seminars I might want to check out. So the prep for Osh is well underway for me. So only a few short weeks away.
Can you believe I haven't even looked at the EAA app for the forums yet? I know. I've been busy. But now that I am not as busy, EAA, let's go.
That's right. I think the very first one we should talk about is the YouTuber meet and greet on Monday afternoon. The first day at Oshkosh officially. I mention that only because not only am I going to attend that event as a spectator, but we may have some things in the works to have a little Flying Midwest, Fly the Transition meet and greet in the general vicinity of that before that event takes place. So probably 45 minutes or so before the YouTuber meet and greet, we'll have somewhere in that area where we'll meet up. So watch out for all of our social media stuff. We'll post that when we figure out exactly where we're going to go on the grounds for that and the exact time. So on the topic of Oshkosh, as we get ready to go to this, this is a really cheap plug, but I know that as I'm getting ready for Oshkosh, I'm ordering some more of our gear so that I can fly the flag of the Fly Midwest podcast while we're out there. But that brings up a good point of our website is back up and running. The merch page is up. So this would be an awesome time to grab your Flying Midwest Podcast merch so you can wear it at the big show. I think it'd be kind of neat to get people in Flying Midwest Podcast gear for a meet and greet and do a little photo thing. But hey, you folks do what you want. So I will say that last year when we did this Dick Knapinski episode, Maddie, you specifically mentioned that you expect to see some listeners in hot pink shirts. And one of our listeners at the time took you up on it and wore that thing with pride at AirVenture. And his name is the Badger Pilot. So,
and now he's here.
And
so
I think I was the only one that was wearing a bright color shirt too.
I think
you
so.
sure were.
I was wearing a bright color.
No, Ed had like this really like lime highway.
Oh, that's right.
green.
Yeah. The point is, you can pick pretty much any color you want. Pick your favorite.
Right.
Pick two of your favorites and order them because you got to have a clean shirt for the next day. And
You do.
Sport the Flying Midwest Podcast gear.
I'd also like to talk about the edition that we're going to put on the website here. Probably by the time this episode airs, it will be live. Do you want to say anything about that, Badge?
I hope so too. So I am riding the coattails of the podcast, and Jim's kind enough, and Maddie too, are kind enough to release some Badger Pilot merch on the Flying Midwest Podcast merch page. So hopefully I'll be able to finalize a design and we'll get that up by the time this episode airs. If not, definitely before Oshkosh, there'll be some Badger Pilot merch on there as well.
The headline here is Badger Gear is here. I'll just leave it at that.
Oh,
Mike,
I like that.
Badger Gear is here.
Excellent. So if you want to support the Flying Midwest Podcast, buy a Flying Midwest Podcast shirt. And if you want to show who you think your favorite host is, then buy their shirt as well. So yeah, head out to the Flying Midwest Podcast website at flyingmidwest.com and check out our merch section. And I can't speak for the other guys, but if I see you wearing Badger Pilot merch, I will definitely give you a sticker.
Oh, we'll have stickers for sure.
There you go.
100%.
Wear a shirt, get a sticker.
I want to also talk about our next episode because we're in full-on AirVenture mode, I feel like. So our next episode is going to be the annual AirVenture Extravaganza Spectacular Extraordinaire Catalina Wine Mixer episode. So that episode, for those of you who are newer to the podcast, is where we have you, the listeners of the podcast, on as guests. We want to talk about your favorite Oshkosh memories, what you're looking forward to this year. And basically, if you want to be a part of that episode, we want you to reach out and we will get you the information on that. We're going to record that episode on July 8th, that we said?
Yeah.
Another highlight from last year's episode of the AirVenture Spectacular Extravaganza Extraordinaire, et cetera, was the very visual interview that we had with Badger, where he brought a large variety of props to an audio podcast. It was a very memorable experience, and I will probably, as we build this up a little bit more on social media the next couple of days, repost like that little reel that I created of that, so you can also have a great laugh at his expense. So watch for those dates. It will probably be somewhere in the range of July 7th, 8th, and or 9th. So more information will be out there on our socials. But the big thing here is if you're interested, reach out to any one of us. Reach out to us on our email, on social media, whatever. All that stuff's in the show notes if you're not sure. We would love to have as many of our listeners on as we can for that fun and exciting event.
Because I've been working too much, and unfortunately that keeps me away from podcasting. So I know we have Dick Knapinski from EAA, but I have no idea what that will entail. So can one of you two fill me in on what I, the listener, as well as the rest of our listeners, have in store for us?
Well, as you mentioned, we have the great Dick Knapinski on with us again this year to talk about the wonderful adventure that is AirVenture. So he's going to be telling us a little bit about what we can expect at OSH this year, a few of the events, special things that we can expect. We cover a lot, so stay tuned, strap in. But before we get into it, I think we should cover this episode's sectional showdown.
I think we should, and because I'm the one that threw that one out there last time on behalf of Ted from the Midwest... Nope, not the Midwest Pilot Podcast, it's us.
He's from the Northwest Pacific, or the Western Pacific podcast that Brian Turner said he would leave us for...
Right, the Northwest Pacific Podcast.
For being his favorite regional specific aviation podcast.
Correct. He's actually from the Midlife Pilot Podcast. For the class, if you want to go back and revisit our Facebook page, it is on there. It was a post for June 7th. It is the just above the notation for Superior, Wisconsin on the sectional image. It is a blue dot with F, lowercase l, and a space and a G. The guess of my esteemed colleagues here was that it was a fig plant, and adjacent to that, where it said stacks, is where they were stacking the figs. So into the comments we go. Lucas says it's flashing green, but that's a NOAA nautical chart abbreviation. Ethan Brodsky says maritime people know. P.S. He gives me a lot of grief about putting FI instead of FL, as it should be, based on the font that's on the sectional chart. I couldn't tell the difference, so he's not wrong. John Roush, further down in our comments here, just has a photograph of Split Rock Lighthouse, which, although it is a stunning attraction, is not exactly in that spot. So, but I think I get where he's going with it, where he thinks it's a lighthouse. As far as the real answer...
Yeah, I thought it was basically just a flashing light on a lighthouse.
But the G is for green, I think.
You might be right.
So we're going to go with Lucas's answer that this is, in fact, it's a flashing light. Obviously, there is a lot of nautical stuff in the Superior Duluth area. So that is going to be... it's a navigational aid, essentially, for the maritime traffic, but that might throw you off as you're trying to go on an airport if you see a flashing green light. So just something to keep in mind.
It is pretty cool to think about all the crossover with aviation and nautical type of stuff. A lot of cool carryover with the traditions. Well, you pilot a ship, right?
Easy. Oh, that's true.
You pilot a ship. You don't row an airplane, though.
No.
So if there are any nautical companies out there that want to sponsor the Flying Midwest podcast, you will get your own section. But until then, thank you to all of our listeners for playing the Pilot Quarters Sectional Showdown, brought to you by Pilot Quarters. They have some awesome shirts, and so go check them out, pilotquarters.com.
What do you say we talk about some news and events?
I say we shall.
What better place to start than Osh? You want to take it away there, Badger?
Yes, I am very excited about this. The 2024 Oshkosh Notice, traditionally known as the NOTAM, or Disc Arrival Procedures, have been published. So if you are a pilot planning on flying to Oshkosh, you can go online now and download your free PDF. You can also, I believe, still order a paper copy of the 2024 Notice. It's all the procedures for how to fly into Oshkosh, depending on your aircraft type. Departure procedures as well, diversion procedures, hold procedures, all that good stuff. So obviously read it cover to cover, front to back to front, upside down, left, right, doesn't matter. Read it incredibly thoroughly if you're flying to Oshkosh this year. Even if you've done it in the past, there might be some changes in there. And if you're not flying to Oshkosh, like I never have, but I'm, of course, a nerd, so I still download it and read it cover to cover and then go and watch all the planes fly, and I can say, hey, I know what they're going to do. But I'm also excited about this. I'm not 100% sure yet, but I'm hoping maybe I'll fly to Oshkosh this year. I know I mentioned earlier I'm driving up on Monday. I'm thinking maybe midweek, depending on how things are going. I might drive home, pick up the plane, and fly in just to say I did it. So that is the big Oshkosh news.
And not only should you really read the notice, please practice your short field landings, please and thank you. Precision landings. People, I have big news. METAR AF is back up, baby.
Yes.
After months of working, Andrew Hughes and, of course, our favorite, sometimes guest of the podcast, Brian Turner.
Aviation funny man.
They have finally got the kinks worked out with METAR AF, and it is back up and running, so you can get your silly little aviation METARs as much as your heart desires.
You know, oddly enough, I had someone at work ask me about that last week. Like, where did METAR AF go? I was using it to look for weather stuff. Like, he's not in aviation at all, but his daughter is learning how to fly. Uh-huh. So, like, he asked me, like, where did it go? So he will be happy to hear that it's back.
Oh, good. I'm
happy too.
I don't know when they started insulting people, but the most juvenile of insults is your mom jokes, and the one that just loaded is visibility is 10 miles. Skies are clear enough to see your mom. Moving into more traditional style of news, we are talking again about the Leo Cohn Aviation Photo Collection. Some of our listeners will remember a few episodes ago, we were talking about the launch of the Leo Cohn exhibit at the Kelch Museum, and we were talking about the excitement that we had that this photo gallery was going to be available for all to see. And that launch has come and gone with great success. It opened on June 30th, and of course will remain on display. But they're also still working on the online version, which they'll have a searchable database. And if you listen to our podcast, you probably listen to other aviation podcasts. So a quick plug for the Green Dot podcast, which is EAA's podcast. They actually had members of the Wisconsin Aviation Hall of Fame on their podcast to talk about this exhibit. And they went much more in depth than I even realized that they would be doing with this online database. So it's not just, I want to search a plane or I want to search an airport. You can actually search for a specific engine and it'll give you pictures of planes with that exact engine on it. Apparently, Leo Cohn was so detailed with his notes that he would have, for these black and white pictures, he would have notes of this is what color the wings were, this is what color the main fuselage were, this is the engine that was in it. All these incredible details. So the online database is going to be absolutely phenomenal. Awesome job getting that launched. I cannot wait to go down to the Kelch Museum at Broadhead Airport to go check this out in person. It has very quickly moved up in my short list of places to visit.
Are you saying Kelch or Kelp?
Kelch, Kelch.
No, so not kelp, like the aquatic plant.
No, now we're getting back into maritime stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can we get kelp stuck in our rudders?
You can.
Oh, not.
But
once.
Try hard enough. Yeah.
Yeah. If you can't make it down to Broadhead to go check out the Kelch Museum, then at least go check out the Green Dot podcast and find the Wisconsin Aviation Hall of Fame episode. At the time of this episode's release, I think it'll still be their most recent episode. They go very in depth about just the meticulous work that they did to bring this exhibit back to life.
Here's an interesting one. What's similarity between South Dakota and Kansas?
Nothing. And I don't mean no similarities. I mean, there's just nothing.
Yeah, that was the answer. Nothing there.
What is also true is two representatives from both states have paired together and are now going at a Congressional Sustainable Aviation Caucus together. So this particular caucus will cover technologies to improve fuel efficiency and sustainable practices that would, and I quote, save money in the long run. South Dakota has been kind of the leader in sustainable aviation fuel. It's been a thing. It's kind of government subsidized. If a company can make jet fuel that is 50% or higher less greenhouse gases, then they get a subsidy. Currently, several companies are working on this. There's a Colorado-based company that is building a sustainable aviation fuel plant in South Dakota. This particular company is going to produce its own corn-based ethanol and then convert that into aviation fuel. Connected to that will be a pipeline, which has been very controversial, apparently. So this apparently is a crucial step in this particular plan to make the carbon reduction score where it needs to be for government subsidies. But again, it is extremely controversial, so we'll see where that goes. So we know we've had some, unleaded fuels at least kind of start popping up, but we don't quite yet have a sustainable, like corn-based or something of that nature fuel. So we will see what happens there. Heading over to Missouri, this is not as controversial as a topic as I thought it was going to be, but Boeing is moving forward with a combat aircraft expansion project near its Berkeley complex. So it is already in there, Berkeley, Missouri. There is some uncertainty with this, so we'll see. Boeing is making a big push, especially for Boeing St. Louis. That branch is making a tremendous amount of investment, they say, in developing capabilities for fighter jet satellites and, quote, future projects. So it seems like they're going to add another building in the expansion. So it's expanding on this already existing site. And this will be an advanced combat aircraft site. They expect to be done with it in 2026. It'll be over 1 million square feet, which will nearly double the footprint of Boeing here in Missouri. So they can't say a lot, obviously, because combat stuff is, kind of quiet. But we'll see really what happens here. It seems that it's a competitive move to build the next generation of fighter jet for the Air Force. The project is known as NGAD, or Next Generation Air Dominance, and the Air Force said it planned an award in a contract in 2024, so we will see about that. Of course, they can't say if they're entering the competition or not. That is a, military matter. However, they're probably facing off against Lockheed Martin, as they often do. At this site, currently they're building MQ-25 refueling drones, but that will be moved over to the Mid-America Airport. It's going to be moved over to a different facility.
Well, that'll do it for our news and events for this episode. Unfortunately, now we must bid farewell to our colleague, the Badger Pilot. You can go crawl back into your Badger cave or hole or wherever Badgers go, and we'll see you on the other side of the episode.
It's called a set. A Badger's home is called a set. S-E-T.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Is that for real?
Really?
That is for real.
That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Excuse you, that is my home you're insulting.
Before we continue with this episode, a quick word from those who make the podcast possible. Hey there, aviation friends. I want to tell you about my friends over at Pilot Quarters. This Midwest family-owned business is ready to make your next favorite flying shirt. They offer a wide variety of chart-inspired camp shirts, polos, sundresses, and tees. You can shop by your state, your region, or even reach out to the guys for special requests. They're great shirts, they're great conversation pieces, and I know that I personally would be sporting mine at Airventure in just a few weeks. So check the guys out over at pilotquarters.com today and soar in style. Are you a fan of the podcast that wants to show off your support at your next aviation event? Well, check out our awesome merch. We have t-shirts, hats, and more featuring our vibrant full-color logo. All of our shirts come in a variety of colors, so you can find the perfect fit for your style. Head on over to flymidwest.com/merch today to grab yours. We are entering the peak of summer flying season, and that means it's time to upgrade your eyewear with Flying Eyes. These aviation-inspired sunglasses feature a sleek, durable, and impact-resistant design. Their gradient lenses are perfect for pilots, providing maximum ease in reading your instrument panel. Say goodbye to those headache-inducing gas station sunglasses that fit poorly with your headset. Flying Eyes is designed by pilots for pilots to ensure superior comfort, even on the longest flights. Head on down to the affiliate link down in our show notes and enter code FlyingMidwest10 for 10% off your next purchase at Flying Eyes.
Well, very warm welcome for the second time to Dick Knapinski of EAA. Thank you for being here.
Oh, it's a great pleasure. I know we had a lot of fun when we did this before, so I'm ready to talk about AirVenture all over again.
Woohoo!
Oh, we're happy to have it. So we are kind of getting into that home stretch. We're not counting months anymore. We're counting weeks until Oshkosh. So
yeah, we're counting days mostly. It comes down to that part. You look at how much has to get done yet, and what's left and what's coming in, and making sure you can get all the checklists done and so forth. And it gets exciting this time of year. The volunteers are coming in. End of June, we always open up the campground, and that brings the first influx in. And then after July 4th, it really starts to roll in. Then, of course, that week before, it's pretty much madness all the time. And then you get ready and you start things up on the 22nd.
Well, I'm looking forward to hearing more about that. I'm also looking forward to being there personally. But so you may remember our Fast 5 questions from last time you were on. Unfortunately for you, the Fast 5 questions are not the same questions. So any studying you did from the last episode is going to do you no good. These are new questions.
Okay.
So I think you're ready for this?
I'm ready for this. I'll make stuff up as we go along. Yep.
That's what we do too, so it'll work out just fine. Question number 1, least favorite aviation movie?
There are some that are just so incredibly difficult to look at because they're completely false. And I think like some of the airport movies are just so incredibly bad when it comes down. And there's a reason Airplane made a parody of all of them, because you think, how can they do that? Lone Eagle, some people love it as a cult favorite, but I go, man, that kind of stretches believability right there in a lot of things. I remember watching one from the 1920s, and you could tell the airplane was a little model on a stick, and it was flying by. And so, unlike King Kong, which was great, the 1933 King Kong with the biplanes flying around, I mean, that just, that was a lot of fun. But those the kind of stretch airplanes, and pilots will go, no, that airplane can't do that. You start putting a 172, on a 7G dive, and you go, no, that's not true. And so yeah, you can do it once. You're right, Maddie. Okay, yeah, it's like, I can land this airplane there once.
Well, I gotta say, the good thing that came out of the airport movies, though, is airplanes. So
that's true.
I'm a huge fan.
Of all time.
Well, staying in the movie space, maybe this won't be a movie answer, but I gotta imagine that from time to time there are some celebrities that show up at Airventure that you may or may not have had a chance to rub elbows with.
Yep.
What would you consider your most memorable celebrity encounter at Oshkosh?
There are two. One of them certainly was Gary Sinise, because he used to bring his Lieutenant Dan band to play at Oshkosh, which is, they do a lot of military and veteran stuff. And he was there.
They do.
And he was doing something in the afternoon after the Veterans Parade, and my job was to play blocking tight end to get him back to his golf cart. And so I'm going back with him, and suddenly in the background we hear, Gary! And he turns around and goes, Jim! And gives him this big hug. And it was Jim Lovell from Apollo 13, because Gary, of course, was in the Apollo 13 movie.
Yep.
So he's standing there. It took everybody about 30 seconds to realize it's Jim Lovell and Gary Sinise standing in one place, and then the cameras came out and everything else. And I was talking to Jim Lovell afterwards. I said, Commander Lovell, why didn't you tell me you were here? We could have got, I didn't want to be a bother. No, this is Gary's time. And my other one was when Morgan Freeman came in 2007. He earned his pilot certificate, and he came with a buddy from Denver. And we convinced him to do a media availability, because people started realizing Morgan Freeman was on the grounds and the media were asking. And so we called and said, would you do this for 20 minutes? And he said, yeah, we'll do it. So he came over to press headquarters, and I introduced myself, and he said, very nice to meet you, in that Morgan Freeman voice. And I know it's going through your head right now. And
so it absolutely is.
And so we went, did 20 minutes. He was wonderful, talked about aviation and so forth, and then he left, and I said, hey, thanks a lot, Mr. Freeman. Really appreciate it. He says, well, it was my pleasure. Again, in the Morgan Freeman voice, and off they went in the golf cart. And somebody snapped a picture, and I still have it, of Morgan Freeman and I standing on stage, and he's got a big smile on his face, and I'm pointing to the next reporter on a question. And that one, that one's a keeper right there.
Oh, absolutely.
Amazing. Oh, how cool.
I would love to be flying around and have Morgan Freeman come up on frequency.
Oh my God, imagine.
I'd want him for every voice that I have in any cockpit warning type system.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
You know you're too low right now. And in the Morgan Freeman voice.
All right, question number 3. Best food at Airventure.
The best food at Airventure? Well, I'm a Wisconsin person.
I'm making a list. I got to check.
Okay. Cheese curds are always it. I'm from Wisconsin, so cheese curds are just kind of, a natural staple of the diet here. A couple of them I would recommend. There is a food stand just outside the main gate, run by a local church, the Sacred Heart St. Jude's Church. Wonderful burgers, great food, and they raise money for their local parish by doing it, and that's always a favorite. And the other one, there's a place called Parker John's. They've got a couple restaurants in the area, and they have a concession, and it's way down toward the south end of Vintage Parking, almost by Ultralights. But great barbecue. I'd recommend that one heartily.
Okay.
So those are just a couple of the ones. The Airventure diet is usually water, adrenaline, and whatever you find left over on the table by the time you get through. But it's one of those things that if I get a chance to go to either of those places, I will during.
Awesome.
Well, now I know where I'm going.
I told you, I'm making a list. Question number 4. We asked you last time your favorite thing on the grounds, and I'm going to get even more specific.
Okay.
You guys have quite the museum there. What is your favorite thing in the museum?
Well, the favorite new thing is we put the B-17 aluminum overcast back in there while we figure out what we're going to, the plans to get it back flying again eventually. But so it's in there, but for most of the week it'll be out because we have big things. 2 things come to mind. They're both in the Eagle hangar. One is the Huey helicopter. That is a 3-time Vietnam veteran, served 3 tours in Vietnam. And it is set up exactly like it would be in 1971 for a mission. We know that is because the veterans group that flew that helicopter was with us last September, and they looked at it and says, "That's pretty good, but it's not quite right." Okay, well, make it right. So they dug around and they set everything up just like they'd have it, down to the guy writing with grease pencil the frequencies on the windshield. He remembered the frequencies for the radio, so he wrote them on the windshield just like he did when he was flying missions in Vietnam.
Wow.
And the other thing is right next to it, the Corsair that was flown by Medal of Honor recipient Thomas Hudner. This was the airplane that replaced the airplane that he crash-landed in Korea when he earned the Medal of Honor. And we looked it up, and Thomas Hudner's son brought his dad's logbooks, and we matched them up with the airplane logbooks, and sure enough, it was that airplane that he flew when he was redeployed out to the Mediterranean. So, those 2 things are a couple of the favorites. But every time, I've been on staff for 30 years, and I'm still discovering stuff in the museum. And it's so much fun to do.
And it's right there, just right at your fingertips.
It's right there. After lunch, you just go walk around for about 15 minutes and just take things in, and it's great.
So our final question is typically if you could meet anyone in aviation, dead or alive. But since we asked you that last time,
Okay.
I had to create a new question, but it's still a good question,
Okay.
I think. Favorite news you've been able to present at AirVenture?
One of my personal favorites probably was when we brought Spaceship One and White Knight in 2005 and did that. And it's very rare you hear 100,000 people go stone cold silent when something comes into AirVenture. But that was one of those moments that when Spaceship One attached to the bottom of White Knight One flew in, and Burt Rutan was on it, and they brought that mothership in on its way to the Smithsonian to drop it off, because Burt had said, "Yeah, I'll give it to the Smithsonian if I can stop at Oshkosh first. Otherwise, you're not getting it." And so that was cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Another one is just kind of a fun one. It was with a local radio station when we used to have the Monday night concerts. We were announcing Dierks Bentley. And we got on with the big country station here in the Fox Valley. And we kind of set up the morning team a little bit, got him on the air and announced that Dierks Bentley was going to be singing the Monday night concert. And I just remember the squeal of delight out of one of the morning hosts when she heard that news, because she was basically a Dierks Bentley groupie. And, it just, those are always fun when you get to do those kind of things and just do something special like that and bring that together. The Apollo astronauts, when we had 15 of them back in 1994, that was an incredible week. We had the crews of Apollo 8, Apollo 11 there. And just those kind of things. So there are a lot of those great memories when you can present that news and have it happen there and just have a lot of fun with it.
Well, thank you so much for playing along with our Fast 5 questions.
Okay, I didn't make the answers very fast at all, unfortunately.
So, no, that's fine. I'll just delete most of it.
Okay.
I love the story that he said that he'll give it to the Smithsonian, but only if he can stop at Oshkosh first. That's great.
Oh, and that was a big thing that year, too, because the Smithsonian wanted it by such and such a date, and Bert basically said, no, I'm going to Oshkosh first, and you'll get it in early August, and we'll bring it in then. And Bert Rutan has always brought all of his creations to Oshkosh first. This year is the 50th anniversary of the Very Easy. And Bert's coming back this year. He's going to be doing 5 forums, an evening program.
Okay.
So, he's always a rock star when he comes here. Bert stops and starts to talk to somebody, and pretty soon there are 20 people gathered around to listen. That's one of the cool things. And he'll head up to the home-built area and see all the Long Easies parked there and start talking to the owners and just have fun with it and ask the questions about how long it took them to build it, how long they've had it, so on and so forth. So he's in his element here. He's among his people here. He hasn't been here since the pandemic. And so coming back to Oshkosh and really being part of things once again.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So, Dick, last year was the big 70th anniversary of Airventure, which was amazing. I know you guys did record numbers, had some really cool stuff going on. Could you give us a quick recap of some highlights?
Oh, boy. Last year was so amazing because really back in 2022, we had set a record at 650,000. And we all sat around going, oh, we can't match that. There's no way. And then we could see it coming along with some of the ticket sales and so forth, and it just stayed solid. And then the campers started showing up, and we had to expand the campgrounds 3 or 4 times to put everybody in. And that was probably one of the biggest memories from that year with the Air Force Training Command, that they came in and brought all the airplanes in. Having Charlie Duke, the Apollo 16 astronaut there, as they were talking about NASA's past going to the moon and the Artemis mission, what's going to be happening in the future. The Super Guppy from NASA, which is absolutely one of my favorite airplanes. It's pound puppy ugly.
So cool.
But it's just one of those things. It's so ugly, it's cute. And, the entire nose opens up like a refrigerator door. And there it is. And, so they stuff rocket parts in it to fly across the country. And right next to it is, the Boeing Dreamlifter, which is designed for the same thing, except 60 years later. And so this 747 that it looks like they stuck the air hose in it too long and it kind of overinflated, and there it was. But it's right there next to it. And those type of things. I remember the honor flight coming in last year after a day at Washington, D.C., just a gorgeous evening when it landed. And we had 2 Medal of Honor recipients, one from Vietnam and one from the Persian Gulf War, there to talk to the veterans. That was just one that stood out on that Friday night. Really, you think back in a week, and I've done so many of these now, that sometimes the week goes by like a blur, and you go, wow, where did everything go? I have a tendency to remember the people more, the people that you run across, and people that you get to interact with, whether they're the media that I have kind of wrangle the media throughout the entire week, or just people you run into, or somebody you give a ride one day and you find out that they flew B-25 missions at the end of World War II, and they're here at 90-something years old. I mean, all of those type of things, you go, wow, that's why we're here. That's what makes it fun.
Yeah.
And just a tremendous time. And last year was one that we won't forget for a long time.
It was awesome.
I'm sure that every year you're learning new things and finding ways to improve the show. What kind of things go into that as you plan for next year? I got to imagine that probably starts even as the week is going on of, hey, let's take a note of this and remember that for next year.
Yeah, there's a lot of it. For instance, the flight line safety meetings every morning, all the groups from entirely up and down the flight line, from the North 40 all the way through Warbirds and Homebuilts and all the way down to the South 40, get together each morning to say, okay, how's it going? What are the needs? What's going well? What isn't going well? What do you need help with? So that's an ongoing thing through the week. But then before the volunteers leave, at the end of the week, we try to catch up with them while the memories are still fresh. So we can say, okay, what do you need help with? What really worked? What didn't work? And collect some of those. And then we send out about 10,000 surveys to visitors, and we get all that feedback. And sometimes it's great to read, and sometimes, boy, it's rough to read, depending on how their experience was. But we take it all as a learning process, and then you start to build. And a lot of people who are developing airplanes will talk to us during the week and say, hey, next year, could I bring this? Or we're working on this. Is there a spot for it if we bring it? And that's where the discussions start, writing all of that down. And then we get around to October, early October, and actually sit down and go, okay, here are all the ideas. What anniversaries are out there? What are we doing to honor this? Or is there something going on in this part of aviation? And start to put those things together. Then it just kind of creates, and you look at the ideas and see which ones are viable, which ones are usable. Same thing on the grounds. Where can we improve? How much budget do we have? What can we make the visitor experience even better? And where are those points of need? And we learn stuff every single year. sometimes it's kind of like squeezing water. You think you've got it on one side, it squirts out the other. And so you have to kind of make up for it then. But all of those things go into it as you start planning for each successive year.
So with that, what are some upgrades or improvements that we can hope to see this year? Kind of hoping for some camping.
Yeah. Well, one of them is in the campground. We had such a rush last year that it kind of overwhelmed the system at times. So as we expanded the campground, we actually had time to sit this year and figure out, okay, if we fill to this point, where do we go next? How do we set that up? We've established some new paved roads at the south end of the campground and a new shuttle loop so people don't have to ride a bus all the way through the campground to get to the flight line. We can come around the other direction and do that. So that's in the campground. Along the flight line, we've improved the water bottle filling stations. There are like 13 or 14 of them on the flight line. Yes.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. And, we put the first ones in almost a decade ago, and some of them had fallen into disrepair, and we had to fix them up. And so we're saying, well, as long as we're fixing them up, let's make them better and add more spouts and things like that. And so, people can stay hydrated out there. One that's going to be kind of interesting this year, we're adding what we call cooling stations or misting stations at 3 points along the flight line. There's one up by home build headquarters and heading toward Warbirds, one between ultralight and vintage, and one it's kind of by the Four Corners and the food court and the merchandise building in that area. And so you hit the button, and you get about 10 to 15 seconds of mist just to cool yourself off. We didn't want to make it any longer than that for fear that somebody might think it's a shower. And, we want the show to be in the air, not along the flight line. And so we keep it to about 10 to 15 seconds. But it's one of those things that people had asked for, because anybody who knows you're going to have a couple hot days at Oshkosh. And those kind of things you've got to be ready for. The NOTAM, or the notice for pilots flying in. We take a look at that. Last year on Thursday, we had a bit of a knot. We had a lot of people trying to get out while we had a lot of people trying to get in. And some military airplanes that had to get out, and a military airplane. We had a C-5 circling for almost 90 minutes trying to get in, and it was just a backlog, and it just didn't work well for anybody. So what we're doing this year on Thursday only, July 25th, is we're holding any arrivals on the Fisk arrival, the regular arrival, until 8 a.m., which will allow people on Thursday who want to get out and move that all out. So if you're coming in on Thursday morning, July 25th, I want to start a little bit later, because you're not going to get that 6:15 slot arriving at the airport. We're going to clear out some of the other folks who want to take off and get out of there, so we don't have that. It's a traffic snarl. Basically, we ended up with a traffic jam at Whitman Regional, and we had people on the ground and people waiting back by Ripon and Green Lake. So we're trying to clear that up and stabilize that a little bit, and working with FAA and our air operations people, we're going to give this an attempt and see if that helps do the trick.
So with this year's show, maybe you could help me figure out the best way to go about this one. I don't know if we want to talk about the air shows specifically first, or notable attractions first, or mix them together. Do you have an opinion on that, Dick? Or?
Well, I think mixing them together actually isn't a bad idea, because so many of the attractions are actually part of the air show. One of the things that really is going to be big this year is the centennial of the Royal Canadian Air Force. We've got the Snowbirds coming in this year. And
I saw that.
Yeah. And, it's the Snowbirds are just tremendously fun. They're, the Thunderbirds and Blues, they're the best in the world at what they do. They're quintessentially American. You take the largest, loudest engine and put it on an airframe and fly as fast as you can through the sky, and people love it as you beat up the air. The Snowbirds are quintessentially Canadian. You have 9 airplanes in this very elegant maneuver that they do for 45 minutes. And yeah, they do some high-speed passes and things, but what they do together is so elegant and wonderful to watch. That it's quintessentially Canadian. So, we have that. So they're going to be there. We've got the only Lancaster.
They're not there the whole week, are they?
No, just at the end, the final 3 days. They are going to be coming in right at the end of the air show on Wednesday. And then they're going to have a day on Thursday just to enjoy the show, because they said they wanted a day just to enjoy the show. And then they're going to fly on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And one note
Okay.
for people coming in on those 3 days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, like we've done with jet teams in the past, we're going to be moving the crowd line back about halfway back to the speaker poles, as we've done in the past. So just be ready. If you want to get right up on the crowd line on those days, you're not going to be able to. And so you're going to be a little bit set back because the jet teams demand a little bit bigger aerobatic box. So we have to accommodate that.
Yeah.
But that will be taking place.
So.
Yep. It's a safety measure, and we'll do that. And if you're going to watch the snowbirds, their air show center is a little bit farther north. It's probably, if you're up by the Brown Arch, that's air show center for the snowbirds. It's a little bit farther north what they do. So that's the primo spot. If you're right around the Brown Arch, you are in A spot right there, number one spot to watch the snowbirds performance. So we've got that. We've got the only Lancaster bomber in North America. It will be here. The Canadians are bringing their version of the F-18 demo team in, so they'll be flying. And Vintage Wings of Canada is bringing a Spitfire, a Hurricane, and a P-51 down. And what's really been interesting is that all the Canadian groups have been talking to one another. And so now we're getting, well, can the Lancaster fly with us? Can we get the Spitfire and the Hurricane to do that? Can we put the F-18 with the Lancaster? And so we're going to do some things to put stuff together that maybe you don't see ordinarily at an air show, but you're going to see it at Oshkosh.
Well, that would be neat.
That's so cool.
What other notable things are going to be going on the grounds?
You just get there, and then some of the things that really the individual areas, Warbirds and Homebuilts and Vintage, have done in recent years are setting up what they call their in-review programs. The Warbirds started it better than a decade ago with the Warbirds in Review, bringing an airplane in, bringing the owner or a pilot or a veteran associated with that airplane, and just talking about it. Then Vintage has picked it up, and they have got some marvelous restorations coming in. Things from the late 1920s and so forth, just immaculate restorations. And they'll bring those in every morning, and the owner or the pilot will talk about those airplanes. And the Homebuilts are doing the same thing, bringing an interesting Homebuilt by Homebuilt headquarters, having the owner or pilot talk about those. And those are those little gems sometimes that people don't think about, that you're looking at all the exhibitors and all the forums and all the air shows,
right,
that here's a place you can stop for an hour and just learn a tremendous amount of what's going on. Another one I always recommend to people is take an afternoon, head out to the seaplane base. Grab the shuttle bus and go out there.
Absolutely.
It's 5 miles away, but a world away. We get about 100, 120 seaplanes every year that land there, and it's this wonderful little lagoon that they taxi into, and you'll see them all moored there, and it's just a different vibe all the way around. I will say bring bug spray, especially this year with all the rain we've had. Those are a couple of things that come to mind, but the fly market is always fun. I call it the Turkish bazaar of Airventure because you can buy anything out there. I mean, it's amazing the stuff that's out there. All of those things that aren't really associated with the air show, and then you get toward the evening programs and the fly-in theater in the evening. You mentioned the museum, and it's just a great time. If you've got your wristband, take the shuttle over to the museum, spend some time in there, and just look around. So those are the things that are on the ground that aren't necessarily in the air, but are part of the whole vibe of Airventure as well.
I know Women Venture has a different location this year, I believe.
It does. Yep. It is about halfway between the forums and the control tower, right along Knapp Street. So if you go north from the control tower and you get toward the forums, you're going to see the tent right there. It really got to the point, the Women Venture tent was kind of landlocked where it was. There wasn't a lot of room for expansion. So we said, let's set it here, and there's some room for expansion in future years. And we've got forums there throughout the week. So some great exhibits. One day we have all women aviation authors there doing book signings. So get on the app. You can download the app right now at EAA Events and get that. Start looking at the schedule and seeing what days you're going to be there and what do you want to see while you're there.
Are there any really unique or notable forums that are going on this year that kind of stand out for the pack?
Well, Bert Rutan's forums are always going to be interesting because Bert just brings such interesting ideas all the time when he's here. There are a lot of them. A lot of people now are talking about what are we going to do with unleaded fuel? And there's a lot of work going on, whether it's through the Eco Consortium the work that Gammy Fuels has done, the Swift Fuels, some of the other ones who are out there. And it's a big issue for us. That mandate is out there at 2030 that we want to get have an unleaded fuel available for the majority of the fleet. And it comes up fast. We're 6 years away from it now. When we first announced that we were looking at 2030, it was 10 years. And now it's 6 years. And so a lot of work is going into it. What does that mean for us who fly small aircraft that burn 100 low lead? Can we use 94 UL? Do we have to use a different one? Do we have to get an STC for it? What's coming around the pike? How expensive will it be? All of those things come into it. The Air Force, we've got the Air Force Material Command this year, and they're the people that not only have airplanes, but they also work on the weapon systems that go in the airplanes. And so some of their forums and some of their people are going to be very interesting to talk with. A prototype space vehicle called the X-40 that's going to be under a tent just next to Boeing Plaza. And we asked, what tent will that be? Well, it's right next to our munitions display. Oh, okay. Yeah, I think that'll work. All right. And so, we'll have some of that as well. So those are some of the ones I would say, and just go through the schedule. And I've learned through the years, there are 100,000 reasons why people come to AirVenture. Everybody has a separate one.
Yeah.
And so find the forums that fit what you want to find out, whether it's building, whether it's restoring, whether it's new gadgetry, whatever it happens to be. And put it on your schedule and take those 45 to 90 minutes to learn some, and then head off and enjoy the rest of the show.
Is there anything that, aside from Bert, that you are looking forward to most? If you're able to break away.
Yeah. Well, we've got a B-52 coming in this year, and that's always fun. Because first of all, to get the B-52 in, it has to come before the start of the event, and we have to put down all the landing lights on runway 1836 so it doesn't clip them off. Then put the landing lights back up so everybody else can land. And that's going to be right in the middle of Boeing Plaza, which is just going to be something to see. The start of the Wednesday night show this year, we have both B-29s coming to Oshkosh this year, Fifi and Doc.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
To start the Wednesday night show, we want to put up both B-29s and the Lancaster to start the show. And we don't know if that's been done since the war. There have only been 4 times in the last 60 years. Both B-29s have been together. The first time was 2016 here at Oshkosh, and they've done it a couple of times since. But to put the Lancaster with it, which rarely leaves Canada, and have them together is something that we're really looking forward to. So, that's one of those camera only at Oshkosh moments right there. Those are the things we look for when we're putting together things like, okay, what haven't people seen? What would be fun? What can we do safely? And those type of things. And, that's a big part of it.
A big part of AirVenture is really the aviation community descending upon Oshkosh and Whitman Field. Obviously, there's a notice that gets published every year, but what are some things that pilots flying in should know or consider this year?
Well, first of all, read the notice. It's, if you have a 2017 NOTAM, no, that one is not good anymore. Get the new one. Go online, get the new one. And, so be aware of that. As always, we try to improve the flow, especially at the Fisk arrival each year. Down in the ultralight area, they've refigured the entire pattern there a little bit to make it a little standard, widen it out a little bit, make it a little safer. So that is taking place, so be sure to read the NOTAM on that. One thing we want to tell the people, if they're coming, especially if they're coming early, if they're a volunteer or they're getting ready to come in one of the mass arrivals, we've got the thing down the road the week before called the Republican National Convention down in Milwaukee. There's a TFR over that on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, the 16th, 17th, and 18th of July. There's a 5-mile no-fly zone right over downtown Milwaukee over those 3 days, 24 hours a day. And then in prime time from 2 to 10 p.m. on each of those 3 days, it expands to 30 miles. I was kidding one pilot. I say, tourists always talk about swimming with the dolphins as something really cool. Well, if you want to fly with the F-16s, here's your opportunity by breaking that TFR, because you're going to meet a whole bunch of new people really quickly who will be waving to you to tell you to land shortly. And then you'll meet more new people after that. So, we're telling people, make sure if you're coming in early to kind of swing a little bit farther west and go between Milwaukee and Madison. There is like a 15-mile corridor between the controlled airspaces there that you can swing up, and it's on the maps, and it'll be part of the TFR process and so forth. So those are for the people coming in early. There are a lot of places. Go on the website, the AirVenture website, and look under flying in and fuel discounts. Already, we've got more than a dozen airports throughout the country that are offering special deals on fuel. You can camp there a lot of times. They might have a courtesy car. They might be serving free hot dogs. All of those things, because they know there are pilots from all over flying to AirVenture, and they're in business. They'd love to get your business, and they're offering specials to do it. So whether it's fuel or whether it's amenities, if you want to camp someplace on your way out there, here's certainly the opportunity to do it. So take a look at that and save a few cents a gallon while you're flying up to Oshkosh.
Hey, might as well. Fuel's expensive enough.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm so excited. Is that Italian jet team coming as well?
Oh, yeah. Thanks for bringing that up. Yes.
Okay.
The Italian jet team, I'm going to butcher the name, Frecci Tricolori. Yeah. It's tricolor with an I in the end. But the Italians will be here. Okay. They're coming up on Tuesday, the 23rd. They are flying in the Milwaukee Air Show, which matches the same final weekend as AirVenture. So they're flying down there in Milwaukee, but they wanted to come up to Oshkosh. So they're not really going to do their whole demonstration. They're not putting on an air show performance. They're going to come up late morning, land at Oshkosh, do a couple passes, do the red, green, and white smoke going by, land, park a couple jets on Boeing Plaza, stay there, be swarthy Italian military pilots for about 6 hours on the plaza, and then get back in toward the end of the air show and do some more flybys and so forth, and head back to Milwaukee. So, it's great that they're coming in. It's one of those things. They would need the expanded aerobatic box, and we started talking with them. It just didn't work out to get them there, and they'd have to bring all their maintenance people up from Milwaukee, and it got to be quite a thing. So, but they wanted to come up here and wanted to be part of the show. And so we said, yeah, come on up, do some demonstrations, bring the jets, put them on Boeing Plaza, talk to the people, and just have a great time with that. And so we're very happy to have them. It's the first year we've had 2 military jet teams come to Oshkosh in the same year. So that's kind of special too. And
yeah, that'll be really
cool. And they're not even from here.
They're not even from here. They just dropped in. They're the neighborhood, so they figured they.
I was going to say,
in. Yeah,
and as long as you're in the neighborhood.
You're from the neighborhood Italians.
That's right. They'd come in and do it. They have not been here since 1986. There are a lot of fun stories, legendary stories, probably apocryphal stories about the Italians when they were in Oshkosh last time. It'll be fun to have them back again for a little while, and just to welcome them here and have them part of the show, which has always been an international show. Last year we had people from 92 countries here, and to have that international flavor, it means a lot to our visitors from overseas because they see that, it really is a worldwide show, and the world literally does come to Oshkosh each year.
Yeah, for sure.
It's also fun for the Americans to see demonstration teams and things from other countries, because that's usually we're so preoccupied with, the F-22s and stuff, which is awesome. Those are so cool. But when we see truly unique things from other places, like when my first year at Oshkosh was 2016, the first people or the first team that I saw ever was the Snowbirds, and it was the greatest moment of my life. I got to meet the team by accident in the merch tent. Or in the merch tent. It was the best. They were just there. I was like, you guys are the ones who did the thing. Amazing.
That sounds, Maddie, that you're that guy from that thing. Yes.
Well, they were in their flight suits. It tipped Snowbirds on them. I was like, oh my God. Starstruck moment.
That's great, Maddie. And one thing that they did in 2016 that was so much fun, because the jets they fly officially would qualify as vintage jets. They were first brought out in the 1960s and so forth. So 2 of them pulled the jet down to the vintage area and camped in it for one night. They had the little Snowbird tents, and their little snowbird sleeping bags, and they set them up there, and there they were for the evening. And I think they're planning to do that once again this year, to go down there. So hopefully the weather will be nice, and they can pull one of the jets down to the vintage area and go, yeah, we're a vintage. Last time B-52 was here too. I remember they were saying they got one of those judging cards you put on the props, and they taped it to one of their engines and went, judge me. And the big problem they had, they went, is this a warbird or is this vintage? We don't know where to enter. And because it really qualifies as both. And but they were having fun. It says on the card, says engine. They went, Pratt & Whitney, GE, 8 of them, and hang that up there. And so I don't know if they want a Lindy or not, but they were in there. So
that is awesome.
They deserve it. I just love how everybody's kind of the same, and it's not a bad thing. Like, everybody's on the same level, whether or not you're like casually into aviation, you're a diehard nut, you're a weekend warrior, you're an avid aerobatic pilot. It doesn't matter. You could be one of the big wigs, and you're just there to have a good time. And that's it. And that's it. It's just, it's so fun.
Oh, you touched on it exactly, Maddie. We've said in the campground, you can have a CEO camping next to a machinist, and they don't know what each other does, nor do they care. They're there to talk about airplanes, talk about aviation, cool adventures, things like that. And you really see that take place there, that you'll strike up a conversation with somebody, and you really have no idea what they do for a living. But you're here because of the airplanes and because of the other people and so forth. And our founder, Paul Poberesny, put it so well 60 years ago. He said, people come to the event for the airplanes, but they keep coming back because of the people they meet, the friends that they see once a year, the new people that they meet, the experiences that they have, that they can take back home and say, boy, there's this place that we don't have to explain why we fly. Everybody gets it. And everybody just goes in and just is enamored with it and goes back and is enthusiastic when they get back home.
Counting down the days to next Oshkosh.
Yep.
Well, is there anything else important that you want to cover that we haven't gotten to in our questions here?
Okay. Well, I can go into storytelling for a long, long time about Oshkosh. But, one thing this year is we're looking at education, kids, things like that. And, of course, once again, with the help from Boeing, kids 18 and under are free, so families can come out. We have a youth welcome center, so if somebody brings their family, you can go there and say, okay, I've got a 6-year-old, a 9-year-old, and a 13-year-old. What do you have for each of them? And the people there can guide you to the right spots to say, here's what we have. And so you can take the families off on those things. Well, NASA's going to be there once again. The Air Force is going to be there in a big way. Those kind of people are coming in. The vintage area is opening up a new youth education pavilion this year. And so they're going to have special stuff for kids of different ages as well. Don't forget about the Twilight Flight Fest. The nights, we don't have a night air show. So it's Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. We go down to the ultralight strip, or the fun fly zone, as they like to call it down there. And you'll see everything from the short takeoff and landing people to big RC models to drones flying by, and all of these things taking place down there, just having fun. Ultralights, powered parachutes, those guys with the paraglider engines on their back, which I'm still trying to figure out. That looks like fun, but I don't know if I'd want to have this whirling prop on my back. But they do a tremendous job down there. Some people stay in their own area an entire week. I try to get to as many areas as possible. And I will tell you, my absolute favorite time of the day is right around 8 o'clock in the evening. Things are settling down a little bit on the flight line, and you actually have a chance to walk around and talk to people and look at airplanes and just kind of take it all in. So if a person has an opportunity to do that, just walk the flight line and just kind of casually take your own time and do that. It is really special. And that really is one thing that I treasure every year at AirVenture. Usually
it's so quiet. People are, working on getting out, like the masses, but most people are still hanging by their airplanes and people chatting, and yeah, it's a great time. That and really early in the morning.
Well, we cannot thank you enough for coming on the podcast once again and chatting with us all about Airventure. We're super excited, and I'm sure we'll see you at the show.
Well, it's been a joy to be with you again. I know just talking to people looking forward to coming to Oshkosh makes me excited for it. To say, boy, we'll see you out on the flight line, and have a great time, and hopefully everybody fly safe, read the notice, and come on in here and just make it a week that is special and take home a lot of memories.
All right, well, who's excited for Oshkosh after that interview?
Me.
I am.
I'm so excited.
Oh, good. All great things coming up this year at Airventure. Thank you once again to Dick Knapinski for joining us yet again this year to talk about all things Airventure. Super excited for the event. Super excited to see you there.
I absolutely cannot wait. There are so many things that I want to see that I know we'll be working a few days, but I hope to get a little bit of free time on my own as well to just go explore and go to some of these events. And if there's in the line of meet and greets that we talked about at the beginning, if I can figure out my schedule ahead of time, and maybe we should do this as a podcast, let people know, like, hey, this is something we're going to go attend. So if they don't make the meet and greet.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Keep an eye on the socials and you can stalk us.
You too can stalk us at Airventure.
Exactly.
All kinds of exciting Oshkosh stuff coming up. And as we talked about at the start of the episode, if you are interested in being in our next episode as a guest, we would love to have as many listeners on as we can. So hit us up, any of our social medias, flyingmidwest.com, or our email, flyingmidwestpodcast@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. We'd love to get as many listeners on as we can get. So,
and as long as you're emailing us, make sure you RSVP for the Flying Midwest Podcast Fly-In at the Lone Rock Airport, August 23rd through the 25th. Graciously hosted by friend of the show, recent guest Rich Wellner, who is able to coordinate a whole bunch of cool stuff with us, camping, potentially a tour, and maybe even a workshop put on by the Johnson brothers, who restores antique aircrafts, excellent breakfast options with Sam's Diner, and recently added to the agenda is a live in-person camping cooking seminar put on by Rich Wellner himself. So he'll get us a list of ingredients to bring so we can all do kind of a learning to cook at your campsite together sort of thing.
That will be cool.
That'll be super cool.
Is it?
If I ask nicely, will Rich cook for me? So I don't want to learn. I just want to.
You'd have to talk to him about that.
All right, I'll hit him up
for sure. So if you want to find out what recipe we'll be cooking, the best way is to get onto our Discord server, which again, you can just email us at flyingmidwestpodcast@gmail.com, get the invite to that link, and join our awesome Discord server. Hang out with some awesome aviation people and just overall have some great Midwest aviation community camaraderie. And speaking of awesome people leaving awesome comments in the aviation community, we want to read the latest review from Mike 1057, who says, easily my favorite aviation podcast. Already from the title, I'm loving it.
Yeah, me too.
5 stars, of course. Love it. This is a laid-back podcast with some great guests and great stories. I live and learn to fly in the upper Midwest, and he gives his airport, which is not far from me, actually. And I love keeping up to date on the latest aviation news and events around me and the world. So 5 stars. Thank you, Mike, for that awesome review and the 5-star rating. And
thanks, Mike.
Based on the airport, I actually kind of think I might know who introduced Mike to our podcast. So if you are from Mike's airport, thank you. And if, Mike, you found it on your own, tell a friend and share the love.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
If you too would like to leave a review and have it read on the podcast, we would love to hear from you. Go over, if you listen to this podcast, if you have the option to leave a rating and review, we'd love to see it, and we will share it on a future episode.
If it's a 5-star rating.
Even if it's a 1, it could be entertaining.
We'll just put clown music in the background.
Please don't leave a 1.
Put 5 stars. If you're going to leave a review that's less than 5 stars, then just email us with your complaints and we'll file it in the appropriate email folder.
Well, thank you everyone so much for joining us here on the Flying Midwest podcast. We really appreciate you.
And until next time,
See you.
See you.
zip!
Flight 536, contact Minneapolis Center 132.35 today.
Thanks so much for joining us on the Flying Midwest podcast. Until next time, podcast service terminated, squawk VFR, frequency change approved. Good day.
Why am I here so many times? Look, just look at the show. No,
On the podcast? You're on the podcast.
Because you're one of the hosts.
I am aware of that, but look at this. Look at this.
Oh,
Today was my off day, and I celebrated by working.
that was
As one
stupid.
does.
Do you work tomorrow too?
Yeah, I start my 7-day stretch tomorrow.
That was dumb of you to work today then. All right. The OSH for prep? Nope. Not what I was trying to say.
Oh, it's a tragedy. Let's erase all of that and pretend like I
Tragedy?
can speak
It's a
English.
tragedy. We're just inventing new words here on the Flying Midwest podcast. It's a
I think
tragedy.
we've invented 3 so far. We've only been recording for 5 minutes.
Travity would be the opposite of that. I don't know.
I think that's a John Mayer song.
Yeah.
Travity.
So I think we're at Badger talking about how lame his job is.
Okay.
And that he wasn't here for this interview.
Don't we have to do like sectional showdown and reading reviews and stuff like that?
If you would read the show notes and the next line right after what yours is, you would see what it says.
Chat a bit about our next episode.
No, we'll go further down.
Okay.
Maddie, very brief build
Say
of
the
the
results
episode.
from
But
last
first,
Okay, but first, should we cover this episode's sectional showdown?
yeah, that's Maddie's line though.
Okay.
You need to go to the line above that and do your job.
Okay. Talk about how it is lame that you were at a real job and not able to hear.
What the hell was that?
They used a special word. Sequestration? I've never read that word before.
Yeah, oh, now I can't say it.
Sequestration. And go with that.
Sequestration.
Favorite news that you've been able to prevent? Nope, that's not what I want to say.
Oh, there's been some of that too. Yeah.
Oh, no. I'm sure there has.
Sorry, I was on mute, and by mute I mean I wasn't listening. Good times, and that's super corny, but it's staying in. So
Holy crap.
What?
like a spider.
Man, it scared the shit out of me. When I have these headphones on, I can't hear people coming down the stairs. So all of a sudden, I just see motion on the corner of my eye, and like, oh god, there's a person. What are you laughing at?
You know, you could just turn your camera off. Remember the blind mode? You don't have to put your thumb over your webcam.
That was easier for the time. I didn't. My mouse is not working properly, so
Okay.
she wanted to run across, and she's wearing this stupid oversized sweatshirt thing. So.